Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Commander's Forge. My name is Andy Bentley, and the Forge is an area for me to talk about Magic, Commander, and anything else while I try and wrangle this whole mental health thing. Now, I'm going to be 100% honest with you, I have not been feeling great recently. I had a dentist appointment on Friday, and nothing wears me out like a dentist appointment. So by the time I got home Friday, I was wiped out. I ended up sleeping for a few hours and then being woken up to hang out with the dogs because other people had to leave the house. I ended up just falling asleep on the couch with the dogs. And that kind of set the tone for my weekend. I woke up Saturday with a massive tension headache. And just, like, not feeling sick, but just physically not having the energy for anything. And, yeah, I was so tired. So, I ended up sleeping most of Saturday. Now, another thing I'll do when I'm not feeling great is when I do get up and I just need to get up and do something, I'll sit at my desk and play something in the background, and I'll just kind of like sort through cards, update decks, just something to keep my mind busy. And yeah, that's kind of where I've been the last couple of days. I'm not feeling wonderful, but I do feel better as I record this. The tension headache has at least eased, and that's kind of it for this part. I just wanted to let people know what was going on. And when I come back, we're going to talk about one of those things I found while I was just kind of sorting through cards. With that said, I will be right back. Hey, I just want to take a minute to tell you about my Patreon. I know times are hard for everybody, and I know it isn't easy to shuffle around bills and stuff, believe me, I know that. But if you would like to help support the podcast and me, you can find the links to my Patreon in my link tree, which is always put into the description of either the video or the audio, wherever you're listening to it. It would really mean the world to me. Honestly, I'm just struggling to make ends meet most weeks. But that's it. That's all. If you want to help, the links will be where you can find them. And welcome back. Now, as I was saying in the first part, one of the things I'll do when I'm not feeling great is I'll just kind of sit down and go through stuff. And as I was going through stuff, I ran across a card. Frodo Sauron's Bane. It's a single white mana for a 1/2 halfling citizen. And then it has 2 abilities. The first one costs 2 hybrid white-black. And it says, if Frodo Sauron's Bane is a citizen, it becomes a halfling scout with base power and toughness 2/3 and lifelink. And then it has an ability for black, black, black. That said, if Frodo is a scout, it becomes a halfling rogue with, whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game if the ring has tempted you 4 more times this game, otherwise the ring tempts you. So I sat there and I thought, hey, what if, clearly this kind of like wants you to be tempted by the ring, but what if we just disregard that and throw some equipment on it and just make it hard to block him? So this deck does not have like a ton of things that are going to tempt me with the ring. As a matter of fact, there's only 2 other cards in the deck that do that. The first one is Frodo Adventurous Hobbit. It's a white-black for a 1/3 halfling scout. It has partner with Sam Loyal Attendant, but this is a white-black deck, so Sam cannot be included. It has vigilance, and then whenever Frodo Adventurous Hobbit attacks, if I gained 3 more life this turn, the ring tempts me. Then if Frodo is my ring bearer and the ring has tempted me 2 or more times this game, draw a card. So this is like the backup Frodo to my main Frodo. And then the Black Death is 2 and a black for a sorcery, and it says creatures your opponents control get -1/-1 till end of turn, and the ring tempts you. So, little crowd control and 1 more shot of the ring tempting us, but that's kind of it. And to really start the deck off, well, ramp. The thing with ramp is if you're not in green, your ramp tends to be artifacts, unless you're doing something with enchantments. So we have a fairly standard spread of mana rocks and such that I'm not going to go into full detail of, but I will say we have Lotus Petal, Soul Ring, Wayfarer's Bauble, Arcane Signet, Thought Vessel, Mind Stone, Orzhov Signet, and then a couple of the artifact creatures that can go get lands. The way I decided to take this deck really starts with what I call the mono white artifact package. And by that I mean equipment. So that starts with SRAM Senior Edificer, which is 1 and a white for a 2/2 Dwarf Advisor. Whenever you cast an aura, equipment, or vehicle spell, draw a card. Pure Steel Paladin, which is white for a 2/2 Human Knight. Whenever an equipment enters the battlefield under your control, you may draw a card, and it has Metalcraft. Your equip costs are 0 as long as you control 3 or more artifacts. And the newest addition to this tier is Danitha Benalia's Hope. 4 and a white for a 4/4 Human Knight. It has First Strike, Vigilance, and Lifelink. And when Danitha Benalia's Hope enters the battlefield, you may put an aura equipment card from your hand or graveyard onto the battlefield attached to Danitha. So, it's the mono white stuff that cares about artifacts, right? And you back that stuff up with, like, Open the Armories, which is 1 and a white sorcery, search your library for an aura equipment card, reveal it, put it in your hand, and then shuffle. Or one of the newer ones, which is Forge Anew, which is 2 and a white for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, return target equipment card from your graveyard to the battlefield. As long as it's your turn, you can activate abilities of equipment to equip at any time you can cast an instant. And you can pay 0 rather than pay the equip cost of the first equipment ability you activate during each of your turns. And then finally we have Sigarda's Aid, which is a single white mana enchantment. You may cast aura and equipment spells as though they had flash, and whenever an equipment enters the battlefield under your control, you may attach it to target creature you control. And yeah, so then from there it was just a matter of grabbing the equipment we wanted to use. And one of the things I want to make clear is that I did not take apart a deck that had all of, like, my Sword of X and Y in it. That deck is staying together because that deck is one that I enjoy. That said, I do have one Sword of X and Y that I had just many copies of that I have floating around to throw in random decks whenever I'm doing something. And that is a Sword of Forge and Frontier. It's like all of the swords of X and Y. It costs 3 and equips for 2. The equipped creature gets +2/+2, and in this case, protection from red and green. And whenever the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play those cards this turn, and you may play an additional land each turn. So, part of what I like about the Sword of Forge and Frontiers is the ability to play an additional land outside of, like, a green deck, you know what I mean? And then the other that I have floating around that I just put in whenever I decide to throw, like, an equipment deck together is my extra copy of Hammer of Nazan. It's 4 mana equipment. Whenever it or another equipment enters the battlefield under your control, you may attach that equipment to target creature you control. The equipped creature gets +2/+0 and indestructible, and it equips for 4. So I do think one of the things that throws people off of that is that it has equip for 4, but the thing is the first equip is free. And yeah. Now, looking at the other equipment, I kind of focused more on making it harder to block my commander. So that means things like Cobbled Wings, Cliffhaven Kite Sail, Fleet Feather Sandals, and Maul of the Skyclaves. All of those give flying, and then, well, flying's the main thing we care about. Maul of the Skyclaves is 2 and a white for an equipment. Whenever Maul of the Skyclaves enters the battlefield, attach it to target creature you control, so again, getting around equip costs. The equip creature gets +2/+2, has flying and first strike. Then it has its actual equip cost, which is 2 white. Yeah. A lot of times that seems like it's going to be hard to include somewhere, just because if the creature does die, and then it's 4 to equip. But it made sense in this deck, for me, anyway. The Fleet Feather Sandals are 2 mana, equip for 2, give creature flying and haste. Cliffhaven Kite Sail is single mana, equips for 2, equip creature has flying, but it has the auto-equip for when it enters the battlefield. And then Cobbled Wings is 2 and 1 to equip to give equip creature flying. So, with all of that, there were a few other ways that I put in that could be considered making it, harder to block. First up, I have the Great Sword of Tyr, which is 1 and a white, equips for a white, and whenever the equipped creature attacks, you put a +1/+1 counter on it and tap up to 1 target creature the defending player controls. So, I call this like a bit harder to block because you're A, making it bigger, making them maybe not want to block with something, and B, tapping down the thing that they would want to block with. It's also the best equipment from that set, especially in white. And we shall leave that there. Next up is Trailblazer's Boots. 2 mana, equips for 2. Equipped creature has non-basic land walk. So, just imagine, how many games have you been in where everybody has a non-basic land? Like, I can even think of, some mono red decks that are still running, 4 or 5 non-basic lands. So, I don't know, it just made sense to throw it in here. And then, finally, we have the classic Sword of Vengeance. 3 mana, 3 to equip. The equipped creature gets +2/+0 and has first strike, vigilance, trample, and haste. So that, in a nutshell, is the deck. There is other stuff in it, but yeah, that's kind of it. This is like a version 1 of the deck, and I'm sure by the time I tune it in, it will be slightly different, but this is what I built without having to buy anything. This was just stuff I had laying around. And sometimes that's just what you need to get your head back in a good space. Is just sit down, look through some cards, put something together, and hey, if it doesn't work, just take it apart and try again. That said, I am bringing this to a close. I do still have stuff I gotta do, and yeah, so I will see you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening. All of my links can be found in my link tree in the description below. I would like to thank Ian Foss and Cody Mulpey of the band The Crypt for allowing me to use music for my opening and ending, along with Nate and Erica Jacobs for making my original logo. And I would also like to thank Christina McNichol for creating my new logo. And I'll see you next time.